So did anybody have any questions from the last couple times? Anything stick out, catch your attention? So what I want to do, it's just going to be a little quick review of some of the stuff I've discussed, so it kind of gets us back in the frame of mind of what we're doing. And then I'd say about 80% of what I want to do with the rest of the class is show you exercises. But as I go through this, there's some spots that'll come up that might spark your interest as far as what exercises we're going to do. Like last time I talked a bit about doing hand and wrist and finger exercises, but I don't want to go over those again that much if you have other interests. So I got some stuff for necks, shoulders, back, hips, knees, ankles. Yeah, so if we gravitate towards the things that you're more interested in, then I can leave some of the other stuff kind of on the back burner. So I did want to bring up from last time, Pamela asked me the question when I was talking about how your thoughts affect the organs and different emotions, and joy was the one that came up, that if you have too much joy, it's actually bad for you. And she was like, that doesn't make sense, because all the other emotions that I listed were kind of like negative ones. You know, like fear affects your kidneys, depression affects your lungs, anger affects your liver and heart, and it's like, why is joy in there? So I looked it up. I did a little bit more research, because I knew that's what it was, because I brought it up into the discussion. And what it is if you have too much joy, it's often looked at as you're a little bit aloof or oblivious, that there's the extremes, right? And I talked about that a little bit. You know, you got to have some anger in your life. You got to be able to process information. You have to be able to be depressed and be able to, you know, have contrast. It's not that you want to stay in those areas. And that's what joy is. It's like you don't want to be in a constant state of joy. Oh, the world is great. Everything's fine. My body's falling apart, but I'm happy. You need to keep it in perspective. So I just wanted to bring that up, because she was kind of caught off guard, like, joy, how can joy be, you know, too much joy can be bad. It's too much of anything is bad. Too much water, you know, water's good for you. You drink too much, it will actually cause problems with your metabolism. Too much salad, you eat salad all the time, you're probably going to be lacking in other things. Too much exercise with not enough rest can be too much, right? You can deteriorate, your body can deteriorate, not have a chance to rebuild if you exercise too much. So anyway, that was the point of that. It was not so much that, you know, joy is a bad thing. It's anything can be good or bad dependent upon the dosage, you know, the amount of it. Managing chronic pain, hopefully without strong pharmaceuticals or invasive surgery. These were all the different things that I had on the table as far as things to discuss. I did talk a lot about traditional Chinese medicine in the last couple classes. I brought out, you know, some of their herbs and the sticks, things that you could tap on your body, and talked about acupuncture and acupressure. That's an area that I'm really strong in. It's exercise. You know, it's not like getting up and running, but you know, different exercises for your hands and your neck and shoulders. Some of these slides didn't come out as big as I thought they would be. This is just about how to get some sunlight. You know, we've kind of demonized, not we, but you know, our culture is to kind of demonize sunlight, and especially living in the Sun Belt, Florida, it's like, you know, stay out of the sun, it's bad. Well, now there's a big vitamin D deficiency, and it's a lot in the US, but it's worldwide. A lot in the South, because people stay out of the sun. A lot in the North, because a good time of the year, the sky is overcast. So we're like about 70% of vitamin D deficiency. And years ago, it wasn't looked at as being such a big deal, but then they started putting out all these sunscreen products where people just put so much on, and then they don't get any sunlight. And then lack of vitamin D has to do with your bones. Your bone strength has to do with immunity. And if you've been following any of the stuff in the news for the last couple of years, our country is very chronically ill from things that could be managed with a little bit more, you know, physical activity, sunlight, better diet. So don't hang out in the sun between 11 and 3. If you've lived in Florida for more than a year or two, people know that. You don't hang out, you know, don't do your yard work at that time of day. Go out for your morning walks, get some sun. Before sunset, get some sun. At the very least, you're getting some fresh air. You know, that's good. Which leads me to the big point of last week's discussion. It's about breathing. Your breathing can affect your health and your chronic issues. So if you can learn some of the exercises we did last week, you know, basically it's just slow down your breathing. You know, I don't have to do a big long presentation on it again. Just slow down your breathing. That will affect a lot of your chronic issues. At the least, it'll change your blood chemistry so you're not constantly being in an adrenaline state and you're in more of a relaxed state. So, I talked a bit about breathing, how we try to breathe from our diaphragm, especially as we get older. Most people are breathing more shallow, and how that breathing affects your nervous system. And that was kind of like the two options. Breathe too fast, you're always in a state of fight or flight. You're always worked up about something. If you're on the other side and you rest, you're resting, you're digesting, that's usually a better state for your body to be in. All your emotions affect all of your thoughts turn into emotions. All your emotions turn into something in your body. If you're always looking at the newspaper, reading all the bad stuff, probably going to start bothering your stomach. You start getting sick to your stomach from some of this stuff. And a lot of these things are things that you hear about. It's like very common. It's like, oh, I get so sick of hearing this stuff. Literally, you get sick. Your body will get sick from too much negative input, and that could be in the way of what you see, what you hear, loud noises, what you eat. If you're eating, it's not just that you like the foods. It's if it's not comfortable, it's not palatable, it's not good. What else? Proprioception, awareness of your space. Sometimes people get kind of uncomfortable in crowds. My wife doesn't like going to like Best Buy. It's crowded and it's loud and people bumping into you, and it's like too much sensory overload. On the other side, I don't like going to Disney too much. It's all supposed to be fun and stuff, but it's so crowded and it's hot.
It's work.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, you're exhausted and you're like, I don't feel like I had a good time, so why am I doing this? So we need to be very selective of what we take in with our thoughts, because those emotions will affect our body. So really, my whole discussion boils down to really three things. Try to breathe through your nose more. That'll make you breathe slower and deeper. Move your diaphragm. That's a little bit more challenging. And, just slow it down. So that's one of the main things, is managing your breath. So when we start to get into any exercise, I did some exercises sitting in a chair. You folks maybe hang out in the fitness center here and do some of their activities, and go to the pool. You got to be aware of what your level of fitness is. If you used to, rock climb and tennis, maybe now is not the best time to be doing that. One of my friends is he's like 68, 69, a little bit older than me. He's still playing tennis, like really good. Like he came down from Boston, New Jersey, I think it was, and he competed in the senior league for tennis. He's like 68 years old. I'm like, doesn't that strain your neck or your knees or your back? And he's like, I'm doing good, He does practice yoga and some martial arts too. So quality of your health has a lot to do with what exercise you pick, what your goals are. What do you hope to accomplish from what we're doing, and your interests. Sometimes people are like, I don't want to do Tai Chi. I don't want to do Tai Chi. Do you even know what it is? No, it's a Chinese thing. I don't want to do it. So, you got to have an interest in what we're talking about. I did talk a lot about reflexology, which is basically pressure, acupressure, putting pressure on various parts of your feet. We did the golf ball. I don't know if you folks got a chance to do any of this stuff after the class. You can roll them around on the ball of your foot and your arch. You can massage your ears. You can do this on a regular basis. Just pinch your ears. You can do both of them at the same time, enough that they feel kind of warm and tingly, and that will oftentimes wake you up. I learned recently, I saw something that if you put your finger in your ear, I was talking about this, that's actually for sinuses. Those acupressure points inside your ear can help with sinuses. But if you do this, they're saying, you massage it like, poking in your ear, that it helps you relax. So it treats anxiety and depression. So all these are just different tools. Last week I talked about the placebo effect a little bit. Like some of these things seem like, can they work? It's just kind of made up stuff. If it distracts you and it gives you something else to think about, that in itself is a positive thing. If you're actually getting results from putting your finger in your ear and turning it around and it helps you relax, then why not, right? If it's better than feeling the pain if it's distracting you, but if it actually does work, which I do think a lot of these things do, then you're getting some benefit from it. The hands. Anytime you do any exercise with your hands, it's very good for your fine motor skills and your dexterity, but everybody starts to lose their balance on some level and their mobility and they get older. People fall a lot. And if you can keep your hands healthy, that's going to help stop you from falling, or you can grab onto something. And that I'm going to talk about a little bit more too. So last week I talked about these 3 acupressure points on your wrist. And a couple of you might have asked if I would print things off. So if you want those on the way out, here's some of the things for wrist exercises. Here's some of the stuff for back exercises. You know, some of those things you really can't do in a chair. So I'm not going to show you a whole bunch of back exercises that you're laying on the ground today. But if you're up for them, then you can grab them. The points on your hand, I was saying the thumb is your lung. They all 3 line up going into your arm and into your chest. So you got your lung, you got the pericardium, and you got your heart. So all 3 of them kind of line up right about like that. But I guess it would be going the other direction. So if you find yourself again getting kind of, anxious, depressed, you're at the doctor's office, you're meeting somebody, it's not comfortable, you kind of massage that. All 3 of them. You can just do it as if you're trying to take your pulse. You put like 3 fingers over, and then take a deep breath. And then when you squeeze, you breathe out. And just that effort again of making a little conscious effort to breathe slowly. Aside from the wrist part, just the breathing slowly might help, release your anxiety or tension. This is, just another extra part of it. So this spot I talked about a little bit. This is like the master key, the magic button. That spot, if you follow your index finger all the way to where it meets the base of your thumb, pushing in towards that, you can kind of do, again, a squeeze, feels a little uncomfortable. That's supposed to be the master pain point. So I've known people have had headaches, maybe upset stomach, any particular pain, you try to do that same spot and squeeze. For a breath, you're trying to do a breath for however many times, right? So if I was going to do this myself, I would just, take a deep breath, push in, and breathe out as you squeeze it, release, and then say like maybe another 5 to 10, however much time you want to invest in doing it. And then you'll, again, very least you're going to be distracted from what's pain, giving you pain, but hopefully that reflex of slowing down your nervous system with the breathing and then that particular acupressure point. So I would say do at least 5, maybe 10, come back to it a minute or 2 later, 5 minutes later, and see if you get some results from doing it. So it's better than, popping a ibuprofen and waiting 20 minutes for that to kick in. So
I don't know where I would have heard about that, but I had heard about that, and I don't get many headaches, but I, feel,
sure.
I do that, and I didn't, know about the breathing that many times. Even pressing down there once, I'm not talking about raging headache, but just
If you can kind of buy into the idea, it's medically proven that your breath does help you relax, okay? If you can buy into the other idea that this acupressure stuff works with the meridians and energy in the body, think of it like, you're a large printed circuit board. And occasionally the switch gets tripped on one part of that circuit board and you got to open it up. And that's what that does. It's kind of like you're opening the switch. I've been doing this stuff since I was 16 years old. I know it works. So it's not like I got to be convinced on it. I've been doing it. It works. I do stuff like this for my headaches. And I had back strains a couple of years back where it was really bothering me. And I would be doing this stuff with my ear. I'd be squeezing my ear and pinching it. And people are like, why are you always touching your ear? You're doing a Carol Burnett thing. Remember Carol Burnett? At the end of the show, she'd always tug on her ear because I think that was like a sign to one of her family, people. So anyway, for me, I know it works. Just, you got to do it. So convincing other people, they have to kind of get, past, the weird stuff. So this was kind of like the whole sequence that I showed last time, and I left off the last ones because we ran out a little bit of time. We ran out of time. We'll try and do it today if you guys are interested in doing that. So this is the same structure on the right here of the different, acupressure points on the hands and wrist exercises. And like I talked about a few minutes ago, why it's so important to keep your hands healthy, because that's what's going to stop you from falling. So there's really like 4 different hand positions. I think I showed 5. There's really about 5 of them, I guess, that you can bend your hand in different positions. And if we do that, it'll help keep your hands, fingers, wrists, forearms kind of healthy. But then if the time comes when you got to use it to fall, you're not going to be as stiff or rigid or as weak, and your hands are going to protect you. But you want to be able to grab too. You know, grab onto the wall, or not the wall, but a rail or a chair or a table, whatever. So the hand exercises are really good for that. So the clapping, you know, it's kind of getting the blood moving. This was twisting the wrist. So I'll sit down and do these if you folks are interested in doing more of those. But again, we only got so much time. So these exercises are for developing strength in your hands. We can do these too. So I just show them to you real quick, but you want to squeeze into a fist down and then squeeze into a fist up. And if you keep your arm straight from your shoulder to your wrist, you'll start to feel your forearm muscles in your shoulder a little bit too. If you keep this bent, then it's really just kind of a weaker wrist exercise. Arm straight, you engage a lot more of the muscles, neck, shoulder, upper arm, forearm. All the way down as far as you can, all the way up. And then, so that's like these two on the right, and the other ones are the same thing with your hand open. All the way up, all the way down. And you can see the color change in my fingertips because I'm manipulating the blood flow. But again, if this is relaxed in this way, and I do it, it's not going to be as much tension on all the muscles. So it's not bad, you're just not getting as much from it.
Do you have a special exercise for trigger fingers? Because when I did that, I have this one that locks up, it locked up.
We can go through a couple of those again. You know, I don't know if there's any one specifically that's going to help you, but trying to do different things might give you some more mobility with it. So these are also practiced from a standing position. You know, if you're up to it, you can stand and sink your hips, and now you're engaging your thighs and your hamstrings, your buttocks, and your lower back, and then you could do that same kind of twisting thing. You can do them to the sides, you can do them open, and this is the easy one. This one's a little more challenging for some, and then, you can even do it like this. So there's options, if you're able to it, or you're able and up to it. So again, overall, all the stuff that I'm talking about, it's being a little bit more proactive in what you're doing, whether it's using some kind of herbs or going to get acupuncture treatments or whatever the case may be. Exercise in general is a very good way to manage chronic pain. People often say though, it's like, I hurt so much I can't do much. I like to walk, but it hurts. So maybe you can swim, or maybe you do some of the stuff sitting in a chair. There's always going to be an option. We always have options. We just don't always like the options. And sometimes, is the cure worth the effort of what you're doing? But exercise in general, if you can find something that you enjoy doing, keeps you, kind of up here. If you're really active, yay, you're in your later years, your golden years or whatever, it's like, yeah, I'm really active here. If you're not doing anything, you can see, it's just, you guys have probably been around long enough to know this. If you're not doing something to keep your body moving, it won't keep moving. So keep your body moving. If you focus on there's 9 major joints of the body: your wrist, your elbow, your shoulder. Okay, that's common, right? Those main ones. You got your hips, your knees, your ankles, and then you have 3 parts of your back. Your neck, cervical area, thoracic, in between the shoulder blade and the hips, and lower back area gets you your lumbar area. So those 9 areas, that's where most people have discomfort and chronic pain. It's the joints and the muscles surrounding those. So if you can keep those joints healthy, you're probably going to be better off, as far as how you're feeling. We have really 3 hearts. It's not just the one in your chest that beats. You have your diaphragm. We talked about that a bit with moving your diaphragm. The more you move your stomach, the more you're breathing deep. The third one is your feet and your calves. If you can walk, it's not just, oh, I'm being active. Your ankles, your calves, this is kind of a detailed explanation of what's going on here. The motion of moving your toes back and forth with your ankle is the third pump. So if you can get up, wonderful. If you're sitting in a chair, you can move your ankles, just do that, pull and push for 5 minutes. It's going to help get that circulation down to your feet. So why is that so important? Again, I don't know how much you can see of these graphics with them having some detail, but the veins and the valves in your legs, the veins and arteries, just as the rest of your body's aging, those valves are aging also. So sometimes they're not as strong, they leak a little bit, you're not getting that blood to come back up. Walking is probably the best exercise that you can do if you can get around. You know, just do it. You know, should I do yoga? Should I do Tai Chi? Should I do swimming? Whatever. Do whatever you can do. But if you can walk, try to do as much walking as you can. So these are some of the things I'd like to do. I'll show you them sitting in a chair. You don't have to get up. It's a back stretch. We got for your hips, your knees, and lower body, your hips. What's that?
I said that's something I've never been good about, putting my leg on my outer leg like that.
Yeah, guys.
I'm not flexible.
For a long time, like, girls or women cross their legs, men sit with their leg kind of crossed like that. And it's like, too much of either of them isn't that good over your whole lifetime. You'd like to be able to do both. Not necessarily that you're going to sit that way all the time, but to have the flexibility to do that. When I'm reading the newspaper in the morning, I will sit like that. And I'll kind of twist my body a little bit because that little twist is good for my flexibility. But I can't sit like this all day. That's not good. In the same way here, I can sit like this occasionally and casually, and that helps loosen up your hip. But if you stay like this for hours a day, that's not good. Any position too much is not good. Kind of goes back to the emotions. Too much anything, it's not good. If you sit all day, not good. Stand all day, not good. You got to be able to get up and down, in and out. So these are exercises here, really good for your lower back, especially if you have like sciatic pain and discomfort. You can do it on a bed or on a sofa. You can do it in a chair to some extent, but don't discourage yourself that you got to get on the ground. A lot of the yoga exercises, especially like in the last decade or two, yoga's popular again for physical exercise, but they show people doing all the contortionist and difficult ones and try to attract people to do that. It's like a lot of the exercises in yoga, you don't have to be like that. You can do them, like I said, sitting in a chair or laying flat in bed. So these are exercises that don't require any equipment or anything. You can just kind of stand and try to reach out. You do a couple seconds. If you want to do longer, you go down, you go up. It doesn't take that much effort to do. And you'll feel better afterwards for doing it. So these are a little bit more involved. I printed off sheets with them. If we can do these, but I wasn't planning on it. These are more for, if you want to grab a sheet and you can, if you're up to doing that kind of movement. Here's a whole bunch of them. These are all for lower back, to some extent neck, shoulder, knees. They're all kind of overlapping. You can't really just do one particular part of your body. It's, oh, my back is bothering me. Whatever exercise you do for your back is probably going to affect some other part of the body too. So everything's connected. And again, just more yoga exercises. And it's like, oh, this one here, I'm going to lay on the ground and try to get my hips off the ground. No, you do it in the bed. Do it sitting on a chair or on your couch. It doesn't have to be laying on the ground. So these are knee exercises. Definitely things that you can do sitting in a chair. You can stand up and do. I don't think I printed those off today. So that's it. So I didn't want to spend a lot of time talking about all of the slides and stuff. I wanted to focus a bit more on specific exercises. If you folks are like, really could use something for my back, then I'll show you some different things that you can do for that. We can go and do some of the wrist things if that was comfortable, shoulders, neck, the main joints. Those are the things most of the time people have chronic issues with. Chronic issues like headaches and hay fever, kind of covered it a little bit with things that you can do with acupressure. We can do that. There are different points on your face to help relieve tension, massage different areas. So did anybody have any questions?
What about the breathing? What is good number for?
Breaths per minute. So on the average, we breathe between 12, like right now you're probably around 12, up to 15 if you're a little bit involved, up to 18 if you're stressed. Like I said, if the door opens up and someone yells fire, you're breathing. you start breathing kind of shallow and quick. So anything slower than 12 is good. 10 breaths and lower is where your body starts to switch between being agitated to being more relaxed. And that you can get down to 10 just by thinking about it. If I just give you a simple cadence of breathe in, breathe out. That much right there, we're probably already at 10 just by taking a couple, at that pace. If you want to do it slower, put a pause. So wait a moment before you breathe. Breathe in, trying to do it slow. Move your stomach, pause for a moment or two. Breathe out, squish your stomach. Take a pause before you breathe in. Hold it for a few seconds, and breathe out. So that right there probably got us down to about 6 or 7 breaths per minute. So the key thing, though, is you can't just do it, like 1 or 2 times. It's like, oh, we just did a couple breaths and we're good for the day. No, you can do it just like that if you need to relax for that particular situation. You're driving, you're going somewhere, you're on the bus, you're going somewhere and you're kind of stressed about it. Take a couple deep breaths, spend a minute or 2, 3 minutes if you can, and then you'll start to get the results from it. Really, it takes about 3 minutes of that kind of breathing to where your body starts to benefit from it. Your heart rate slows down and chemistry changes. Okay? Anything else? Any other questions? Otherwise, it's just me. It's the gym show. I tried to encourage this from the beginning that this isn't a lecture, it's a discussion. So that means we go back and forth and you bring up things that you want to talk about. You got something?
I have a question. The physical therapists here said they can always tell they're sewers or they're readers because, we tend to be like
Right.
this. So, and I feel that very much. I'm not a reader, but I'm a sewer. So, any
Yes.
exercises
Let's
for
do some stuff for that. So what I was planning on doing, if you didn't have anything particular that you wanted to go through, I was going to start at the top of the head, and work our way down to the feet. So then I have some logic of how I'm presenting this, and then oftentimes it'll be easier for you to remember. I don't know if you folks have a photographic memory or not, but these little tricks can kind of help you to remember these things, and then maybe other things depending upon how you organize it. So we'll start at the top and do a little bit of neck, and then the shoulders, and then to the back. So the thing with the readers and the sewers, now it's also the phone people. And where you're seeing in the past, people as they got older, they maybe start to get the hunch or the rounded shoulders. It might have been just lack of activity, poor posture, a lot of reading, a lot of coffee drinking at the table, that kind of stuff. Now you're seeing it with the kids and high school kids. They're starting to get the rounded back and shoulders because they're like this all the time. And the difference, when you get older, you're losing some muscle tone and bone density. So now, it's harder because you don't have that anymore. They're at the developmental stage. So now their body isn't quite formed yet, but they're putting it in this position all the time. So that's where it's going to form for the next 30, 40 years of their life if they're just going about their business and not making an effort to change it. Whereas, me, I'm 61. You folks might be 1 year older, maybe 2. You might have came into some of those habits later in your life with sitting and reading and sewing and things like that. They're getting it now at grade school age. So it is. And you can point fingers and this and that and politics and culture and society and all that. Well, if people don't take the initiative themselves, the responsibility, it's not going to get better. But they got to know too that there's things to do.
Yeah,
so
somebody needs to tell them.
yeah, they got to be instructed. The kids, they're just like their body is in the developmental state, so is their brain.
And mom and daddy need to know too, so they can talk to them about it.
Yeah. So when I was in school, probably for you folks too, we had PE every day. Every day of the week, 5 days a week, it was PE. Kindergarten and elementary school, maybe it was more like fun play, and there was PE involved in it. But every day it was either like recess or PE. Going into high school, it was every day, and I felt great because I was more physically active. I knew that this was something I needed to do, stay active, and I appreciated doing it because then the rest of the day was a little bit easier. The stress was less being a high school student. And I think if you talk to teachers, I got a lot of teachers in my network between neighbors and friends and family and stuff, they all say, it's like, geez, when kids exercise or when they have PE, it's so much easier to teach. The kids are much more manageable. They're not getting into fights. All the silly stuff isn't happening as much because they have that physical release, whether it's from PE or recess.
So many schools have taken, they've taken PE and recess out.
It makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're a board of director, the school board or whatever, and they don't understand that concept, I just don't get it, you know.
Well, when I taught, we had recess and PE, but I know when my kids were in their late 50s and 60s, they cut that out completely, at least where the school system where we were. They didn't have,
So what I've heard is some of it comes down to the academic hours. You know, how many hours a day that they want the kids to be engaged in reading, writing, and math. And then, they want them to have that much exposure to try to keep up. Well, guess what? We got years of data that we haven't been keeping up. The United States and the kids are behind. So more academic hours isn't making our kids smarter. It's making them more stressed. And their bodies are showing it too. So, if they want to have kids do better in math, give them some physical exercise. And then they'll come back more focused and calm and be able to, tackle the problems. So anyway, we can talk about it for a very long time. It's something that, it's a very much a debated topic. How much activity should kids be getting? So I'd say get PE back in school every day. So any other questions? Because otherwise, me just rolling on to the next thing that I had planned here.
Show me something to do for migraines and dizziness.
So migraines are a little bit harder. I've had migraine issues. So it's not so much like an exercise, it's more of a awareness. So it took me a couple of years to figure it out because I didn't get them that often. My mom, 97 these days, she still gets them. So it's inherited, right? So then I didn't get them until maybe I was like 25 or so. And then I was shocked, like, oh, I got a migraine. And then it would go for a year or two, and I'd never get one again. And then over maybe the last 20 years, I'd get them again more sporadically. So I was keeping a record of them because they're devastating. It's like, for me,
you got they call it cluster.
yeah. So for me, I get tunnel vision, and that's how I can start to know it's coming. And I'll look at my watch, and I can't read the numbers. It's like they're shifted a little bit, kind of like bad print in the newspaper. When it shows up Sunday morning and the paper's a little bit off, I can't read that. So that's how I know. That's like, uh-oh. If that happens, now I know I can't be driving. I got to sit down somewhere. I do have some medication that reacts within 5 to 10 minutes. That will do it. That'll take it away. And then I'll probably have a bad headache later in the day, but it won't be a migraine headache. Where the tongue gets numb or part of your face gets numb, aurora, where you can't see like to the sides and all that thing. Aura, not aurora. That's what my migraines are like. So for me, I started logging them. And it was, again, over years. Like, when did I get the last one? 3 years ago. Oh, okay, well. What I figured out was if I saw bright light early in the day, that could trigger it. So I don't know if you noticed, but I was very cautious of where I was standing when I started talking because this thing's giving off a real bright light, the projector. And it's still kind of early in the day. So why do these things matter? Well, your eyes, there's chemical reactions that, again, happen. When you see something really bright, your body adjusts. When you see something dark, your eyes contract or open up, or what do? They open up your pupils so you can see in more. So there's different chemicals that are reacting to your eyes. That can affect your kidneys and your adrenals. Your adrenal glands sit on top of the kidneys, and that can affect the migraine headache. So the bright light early in the day is my trigger. So I went through chocolate.
Mine too. We went to a concert on I guess it was Saturday, and down at Dr. Phillips, and they had those lights like that.
Oh, yeah.
And every once in a while they would flash them towards us.
Yep.
And it really, that's a very bad thing for me.
Yeah, I've been at some concerts in the evening, and that I don't risk it. I just kind of close my eyes and wait until they get done with the show, or that that part of the show where they're flashing the lights.
I actually put my program on.
I've brought sunglasses too. I wear sunglasses all the time. When I came in, I had sunglasses on top of my head. If I'm outside during the day, like I said earlier about getting some sunlight, I will wear sunglasses. And some people say that's bad if you wear sunglasses all the time because it doesn't give your eyes the ability to develop a resistance to it. You know, I'm 61. I've had the migraine since I was in my mid-20s. That's what keeps me from getting the migraine. So I will wear sunglasses when I'm outside. So it's more of a awareness for me as opposed to like, oh, I'm getting it. What should I do now? It's like, kind of like once it happens, I kind of have to write it out. You know, I'll take that medicine. Within 10 minutes or so, I'll probably be back to normal other than having a bit of a headache later in the day. So I don't know if that helps you, but chocolate for some people, wine, processed foods, soda, you know, it's all the different evils, you know, that things that aren't that good for you, but it's at the right time or the wrong time or the right place, those are all things that can trigger migraines. So I've done all the different ones that I figured it out. You know, it's like, oh, it's not cheese, you know, it's not wine, it's not soda. Oh, the bright light one, that was the one that kept coming up. Like, what time of day was it? And what was I doing? So I opened up the refrigerator one morning after the whole house was dark, opened the refrigerator, bright light hit me. Within 5 minutes, couldn't see my watch, like, got me. Bright light from the refrigerator.
I never even thought of bright light. I know the flickering lights and sometimes.
Yeah, that's bad too.
Yeah, sometimes movies and TV shows, if they're flickering too much and you're watching on a big screen or, you know, close up or something, that can be a trigger for some people. Do you know what your trigger is for the migraines?
Well, I know for no food, but flickering lights, bright lights. I've never thought about that before. And also different kinds of light bulbs.
So lighting is a bit of an issue for you.
That's mine too.
Yeah, and red wine.
Yeah, I was gonna say red wine.
Yeah. So I've also heard, I haven't had it happen, I haven't had a migraine in a couple of years now, so, you know, don't get to test these things. Yeah, I don't get to test these things, but I've read if you immediately, you know it's coming, you take an ice cube and you suck on an ice cube. And the roof of your mouth is very close to your brain. And, you know, migraine headache's happening because some part of your brain is being affected by it. So it makes sense physiologically that it could help, you know, ice cube, suck on an ice cube. Some people do that anyway, you know, just,
Freeze, like a freeze type.
yeah, like a brain freeze, yeah. So you give yourself a brain freeze, it might cancel it out.
I've had migraines since I was in college.
Yeah, mine
And my
started-
mother
So you should be an expert on them too, right?
I'm sorry?
You should be an expert by now with
I
them, right?
should be. I'm still trying to deal with it.
Yeah.
My mom at 97, she takes medicine that, you know, manages it. I take the emergency one. She takes something like on a daily or, you know, a couple times a week
My
basis.
mother had them until she was 78 when she died, and she still had them.
Yeah.
But a lot of women, when they go through the change of life, they're hormonal related, they are finished.
Well, there goes back to the chemistry part I was talking about earlier. Chemistry affects your health, right? And things you see and your emotions, all that stuff. Sometimes I've heard women can have like a traumatic experience of some sort, and that can trigger it. You know, bad day at work, you know, chemicals are out of whack, bad day at work, you're gonna have a migraine headache from it.
Stress is one of mine too.
So,
The neurologist told me if you have them in your 6th decade, you will have them for the rest of your life. And he was so right.
yeah, I would say it's more of a matter of managing it. You know, I don't have a,
That's all.
you know,
Yeah.
smoking gun type of thing. Oh, it's gonna fix it and do it. Thought there was something else I was gonna talk about with the migraines.
Even, you know, sitting and pacing the window. I have trouble with that, and my friends are so good about saving me a seat with my back to the window.
Right?
But if I have that bright light from the window, I'm pretty much gone the rest of the day,
That's right.
Do you wear sunglasses?
all the time.
So you can,
No, I try not to wear them inside. I tell you why. I can't see well enough inside with the sunglasses.
yeah. Then you get the, you know, balancing between I can't see and, you know, if I put them on, then it's dark and I can't see inside with sunglasses on. So I very seldom wear them inside unless, like I said, like I go to a performance of some sort where I know they're going to be flashing bright lights and I'll just put them on once I realize that's what the show is going to be. So like you got to be a step or two ahead.
What's that?
You need to be a step or two ahead
Right.
of what you're doing in order to manage it.
Even as a small child, every picture
Oh, yeah.
with one eye closed, trying to manage.
I get it. At
their
least
life.
the good side, you know, there's always a good and a bad. At least the good side of it is you know kind of that that's going to do it, and you know light's going to do it. So I know, you know, if I start looking up at these lights here, if I start staring at them,
Yeah.
probably not a good thing.
And it did have some good effects on my life. I couldn't stay out in the sunshine, so that I didn't have skin problems.
Right? Yeah. Good and bad and everything,
So
right?
it balanced.
Okay. So any other questions? Because otherwise I'm going to just start to go into some of these exercises
So,
here.
The other thing that I've noticed so much around here,
Right?
and some of us are now using walker for various reasons, is the way people hold the walker and how they walk.
Okay.
And I've always wondered if we took a picture of them so they can see, you know, you see somebody on a walker and they're like this.
So they're probably going to be straining their neck or their back or their shoulders if they're leaning way over it.
It's like the walker is 2 feet ahead and they're hanging on for dear life.
Right?
And I wonder, how can we have people realize they're doing that?
It's almost like there needs to be a class or a
Oh,
discussion on how to do it.
They tried.
Really?
They tried.
Nobody shows up?
Well, I know PT tells you that,
Yeah.
because when I went to use a walker, they instructed me on how to walk up in the walker. You don't push it out in front of you, you walk up in it.
So like any of these topics, you know, the chair, the migraines management, neck issues and that, all the stuff that I have and talk about, still it's a hard sell, you know, to get people to do it. You know, self-responsibility and taking the time and the effort and the interest in doing it.
Just taking the time.
Yeah, it does work. You know, the stretchy band things, you know, you get those at the Sports Authority or Amazon, stretchy bands. It's like, you look at it, nah, I don't want to do that.
My physical therapist said, do not use those bands, for me.
Yeah, I'm using the bands as like an example though, okay? So pick anything
Yeah.
that's like a good thing, you know, a foam roller. I talked about the foam rollers I brought last time, the things you can roll, but whatever it is. But people won't do it until it gets to the point where it's so bad that they need to do it.
Well, you know, speaking of, you know, how people won't do it,
Right?
that just absolutely overwhelms me when I see all those exercises.
I
And,
understand.
You know, all the hints, all the pressure points, all the, you know, all that. I'm looking at it going, oh my God.
So what I'm doing, my like perspective with this, I'm fishing. I'm casting a net
Okay.
and throwing all this stuff out there so that hopefully there's maybe one or two little fish that I catch.
Right.
And not that you're fish, but one or two things that might catch your mind. So if it's not the acupressure or the roller thing, you know, maybe it's me just saying, you know, go to a chiropractor. We did, you know, last time. I got you a card, right?
I got the card.
So if that's one thing that comes out of this net that I'm casting and it gives you some improvement, then that's great. You know, somebody else might be able to take this and go, I can do those. You know, I can do these stretches. And, you know, thanks. You know, I got one thing out of the class is a couple exercises that make my neck feel better.
I can do them in a matter of getting to do them.
Yeah.
We can always find a reason
On the
not to.
chiropractor, we were talking about this the other day. There are some chiropractors that have this thing that they crack.
Yes.
Which is, yeah, but is this one a regular, or, I mean, he's doesn't do the cracking?
So I don't know him that well yet to know that. I haven't taken any treatments from him. I actually have another friend of mine that is a chiropractor that I trust. And I've known him for years. And I would trust him with some of the things like the neck crack. You know, really it's turning the neck and then to the side, 45 degrees up. Well, I can do exercises just like I'm doing like now, showing you that give me the same result and I don't get cracked. So I would say to him, I really don't like that anymore. You know, it's just uncomfortable feeling. So he's like, well, you can lay on the bed and he can do it more like with support with the bed. So it's I think they call it high amplification and HA something. High amplification adjustment or something like that.
I know that I used to live in Atlanta, and, you know, they have the big school up there,
Uh-huh.
chiropractic school, and I did go to it in College Park. I did go to a chiropractor for a while, but he did not He did everything with pressure.
Yeah. So the point I'm getting at, I think if you find somebody that you know that you can trust, like, okay, you know, I'm going to see you, I get a good feeling from you, just tell them. You know, like, I really don't like the cracking stuff.
Oh my gosh, I had my neck cracked one time. I thought I was dead.
Yeah.
And well, I did have a
I
friend
did.
who was
I
injured
mean,
from that.
And you know, I think
I thought he has broken my neck.
I might be speaking too blanket of an issue here, but usually it's not like the shoulder or the lower back. You know, that cracks, those crack like on a normal basis for me, so I don't have much of an issue with that. But the neck, that cracking, again, most people don't find that comfortable. So let me show you something that you can do for that that's kind of in the same, you know, same exercise really. So I might face you or turn sideways or turn around so as to give you the perspectives with this. So that particular exercise that I'm talking about, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep my shoulders relaxed, my back, you know, relatively straight. You don't want to be like hunched over. And try to turn and look up to the left, like where the wall and the ceiling meet. And then bring your chin down. And let the weight of your skull help relieve tension on the neck. And then we do the same thing up and to the right. And then back down. And then we go straight up, whatever straight up looks like for you, and then all the way down. So if I'm using my neck muscles, you know, to turn, and I'm straining and it's getting tense, that's not good. We really don't want to strain to do it, right? So I want to be as relaxed as possible turning. And I can feel the tension, you know, on this muscle and then a little bit on the one on the backside. When I come down, again, it's not that I'm just trying to like force my head down. My skull weighs, I think, it's like 10 pounds, like a bowling ball, right? Like a bowling, you know, if you ever bowled, but, you know, 10-pound ball is kind of light. 16-pound ball is pretty heavy, right? So you got a 16-pound ball, that's big, right? So I'm going with, I think my head weighs about 10 pounds. So if I'm restricting or resisting bringing my chin down, that's not helping. That's just making the muscles tense, right? So if I think of my neck 10 pounds, just dead weight, let it drop. So when I come up, again, I'm moving 10 pounds of my weight of my head, but I don't want to strain trying to lift it up. I'm just, you know, I can move it still. It's not tight. Up to the right. And then down. Up to the left. And then down. So again, it's not so much just that you're doing the exercise, it's an awareness of how you're doing the exercise. So if I add a deep breath in with that, now I'll be even more relaxed doing it. So I'll breathe in, and then I breathe out. And breathe in, and breathe out. And breathe in, and breathe out. So I can hear it in my ear. I can hear the muscles stretching and a little crackling and stuff from the vertebrae, but it's also the fascia and the muscles kind of stretching and doing that. So big difference though between me just doing it like an exercise or doing it with a breath. And now I'm more relaxed and I get a little bit more twist, a little bit more stretch, a little bit more distance when I dip. So the reason why chiropractors do that exercise so much, I don't know how familiar you are with it, they might have taught you this if you've gone to one before. So you got 5 vertebrae up in the neck area here, right? The top 5. I think there's 7 total. You got 5 that near the top, you got the atlas and the axis, the 2 right below the skull. Those are the main ones. Everything else goes below that. So if those 2 are a little tight or out of alignment somewhat, the whole spine is affected by it. Whereas if your lower back is affected, you know, that might not feel good and everything, but it might not be causing you discomfort up in the neck. It might, but if you keep this loose and, you know, supple, those 2 will affect all the way down. So that's the good one to do, like to start the day. You know, neck exercise, stretch up and breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, just real slow and relaxed.
Can you talk a little bit about dizziness?
So dizziness often happens when you're moving faster than your eyes. Your body's moving and your eyes can't keep up. So there's a disconnect. The eye and all the muscles, there's a reflex that goes from the eyes and the optic nerve to the brain, and then to the spine, and then to the muscles. So these are moving fast, and you're doing stuff. And then your eyes are like, I can't keep up. The focus isn't there. So the distance between your eyes and your body movement, there's a discrepancy. And that can cause the dizziness and unevenness. Standing up too quick can cause you to be dizzy. Because the blood, while I'm sitting here, just with gravity, starts to pool. It's down here more from lack of activity. So you stand up, the blood drops even more, and it's not here, so you're getting lightheaded. And that's not your eyes so much, it's where's the blood at. So that's called hypotension. Hypertension is high blood pressure. Hyper, too much. Hypo, too low. Blood's low. Blood's low, I gotta bring it back up. So you could try to stand up slower if you know this is an issue, like if I stand up too quick, you know, or you can do something like this, where you move your arms a little bit, you know, a prescribed exercise. This is pushing down, this is twisting into a W. Pushing down, W. So this movement of my arms is drawing blood, and the blood is your oxygen. Your arms are close to your head, so the blood's starting to come back up. Now I stand up, and I already kind of primed the blood and the oxygen to come back up to my head. So those are two reasons that I'm aware of why you get dizzy. It's moving your head too quick in relation to your body. It's out of sync. Either the legs are moving too fast and your eyes can't keep up, or you're moving your head too much and your body, nope, there's a discrepancy there. Or hypotension. You stand up too quick. It used to be kind of fun when I was a kid. You know, you're learning about yourself and how the body works and stuff. So you're sitting or you're playing or whatever, and then you stand up real quick and you see stars, and you get a little dizzy. And you're a kid. You know, I remember doing this when I was 5 to 10 years old, and a little kid. You know, it's like, okay, kind of cool. And then you're like, oh, dizzy. And then you realize it's not a good thing. You know, you get a little wiser and you bump into stuff, and then by the time you're, you know, in your early teens or whatever, you don't do stuff like that. So that was me. So does that answer your question a little bit with dizziness?
Not
Show
really.
us that.
Mine came about first when my blood pressure went to 220. So I can tell when my blood pressure is up.
So do you know then you're going to be lightheaded at a particular time? Like if I stand up now, I'll be lightheaded?
Well, it can happen when I'm sitting in my chair.
So you get lightheaded when you're sitting? So let's do that arm.
And I take my blood pressure and it's good. That's
So-
because I've taken the medication.
Yeah. So I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't know, you know, exactly how.
I just assume that's because I've taken the medication and it's lowered my blood pressure.
So if you
And
want to
makes
try
me
this,
have the vertigo.
I'll give you another tool in your toolbox that you can, you know, try. And this is one thing you might get from this that might help. So here's the exercise that I do. You take your hands. So you've been sitting, you're not doing much. All the blood's pooled in your legs. It's not so much in the upper body. So if I just take my hands and start to do this, like splashing or pushing away and pulling the wrists back, you're manipulating the blood flow in your arms. And then I come to here and I do a little twist or a little flick. And you see my fingertips right away turn red? And then I come in like I'm pushing a ball down, like in a pool. So think like you're in a pool. Splash the water. Flick the water off your hands. Take a beach ball. Push it under the water. So if you could do the head movement, now you get even more blood coming up to your brain. So I splash and flick, look up to your left, and then down. Splash, flick, look up to your right, and push down. Yeah, there's a little coordination, you know. It takes a little practice, right? So you got to think, I'm splashing, I'm flicking, pushing down. So if you're adding the head movement in there, so now, all this movement's helping loosen up your neck and shoulders, but you're getting more blood flow too. If you're turning your head too quick, you might be getting lightheaded from doing that though. So you got to find what's the happy medium with it. So did you see though, like anytime I did stuff with my hands, how my fingertips keep changing colors?
Is that the blood? I guess
Yeah.
to the finger?
It's me deliberately managing my body, my nervous system, my muscles, to get the blood moving. So if I just, if I'm really slow, I might not get the same effect, or not as much. But if I'm deliberate, and I'm pushing or splashing, flicking, you'll see them more, especially like right at the tips. So if the blood's more in the tips, all the way from here, there's more oxygen in the blood, so I'm getting oxygenated blood. And then you turn the head, it's the same thing. I don't know if my face is going to turn red, but I'm getting more blood coming back up to my brain. So that is, those are a couple different things you can do for lightheadedness, a couple neck exercises too. But what you can do too for your neck, I have tight neck and shoulders often because I do a lot of stuff with the computer. So you turn your head, don't lift the chin, just turn to the side. And then the other direction. So this can help with dizziness if you have that issue with your eyes. Well, like I try to turn too quick with my head, or I try to focus too quick and I get lightheaded. This is a good exercise for that too. So I do this slow. I look towards the wall. In front, I don't look at it. I just kind of glance by it. And then I look to the side. And if you can pick something like the switch or electric outlet or the picture, then you got something that you can kind of focus your eyes on.
Something that happens to me sometimes when I go to lie down in the bed at night, I think, oh gosh, I'm going to have vertigo. So I'm lying down.
Right.
If I open my eyes and focus on
The
that
focus. Yes.
that, it's gone. It's totally gone.
So this is helping that focus part. That's why you don't look in front, because there's too much. If I go from here and then I look at all of you, and then there's too many focus points in between there. And again, that causes that disconnect between the eye, the optic nerve, and your muscles, and it's out of whack. So that's like eye training. You're training your eyes to be focused. That is a very important part with dizziness.
I'm completely opposite of her. If I lay down quickly sometimes, I will get dizzy, and I close my eyes. And I don't know whether it's a light or what it is, but if closing my
I
eyes.
purposely open my eyes quickly. When you go to lie down, you kind of close your eyes because you're getting in the bed, and your eyes are kind of closed. And purposely, I'll open them up and go right to. There's a fan kind of above my bed.
Don't do the bright light. Don't open
I
and
just
stare at the bright
focus on
light.
that fan.
Then you'll have another issue if you.
Yes, bright lights.
So closing your eyes is a way to reset. That kind of resets, again, that disconnect. So it's like the room is spinning, or I'm a little lightheaded, a little woozy. You close your eyes, you take that sensory input away, and for you, it sounds like you can reset it. So I've known my wife, that'll happen with my wife. She gets vertigo sometimes, and reset it. But other people, the focus, having something strong to focus on. If you're driving in a car and you're the passenger, or you're on a bus, and you're looking at everything, all the scenery, like look at the train, look at the houses, look at the person standing there. You're looking at so many different objects, all those different focal points. Your eyes are going all over the place. Sometimes that can make you dizzy, headaches, stressed. There's all different things that add to it. So that's the next one. You go side to side. Don't look forward. Just try to pick your eyes. Put your eyes on a top or a spot, and just train your eyes to get to it. And then the same thing going up, look at one of the cross pieces, come down, look at your hands or your watch or something, up and down, side to side. So that's a good one for those issues. How about neck and shoulders? Not just the neck, but shoulders. So last week I showed you with the sticker, the whacker thing, right? And then I also showed you shrugging your shoulders and then drawing them back and then down and then forward, kind of like we're drawing a square from the side. It feels really good for me. I feel good with it. So I kind of start here, like, I call it the high school slouch, kind of slouched over. And you bring your elbows up, or your shoulders up to your ears. And then you come back. Your arms are still kind of up, but then you go down.
Hear that cracking too.
Yeah.
Bone on bone. I can hear it. It makes you dizzy.
So you close your eyes and do a little reset. Does that help?
Hey, I have a question to ask you.
So maybe that one's not a good one
Right.
for a couple of you if it's not comfortable, right? So that's why there's variety. You got to try different things. If it's bone on bone, it's like, well, maybe there's a different spot that can work better. So you can try and cross your arms in front and then drop one arm. And then back to level and just the other side. So my head stays where it's at. I'm not going with it. Otherwise, then it's more of a back stretch, right? So I'm just dropping one shoulder and then dropping the other shoulder. So that's an option. Then you can take your arms like this, and you can try and, again, I don't move my neck. I'm just moving from the arms and then consequently the shoulders attached to the arms so they get a little stretch. So if you do this, then that's a hand and wrist exercise. I'm not moving my shoulders at all. I saw a couple of you just moving your hands. So it's really, the forearms. Forearms. You could do your hands too.
That's not as painful as the forward motion.
Yeah.
The forward motion.
So then you are familiar with what might bother it or what irritates it. Don't do the ones that bother it. It's like, oh, well, there's other things you can do too. So we can put our arms to the sides and then make like a little circle. So this is circling my hands. This is circling more of my forearm. This is the shoulder. So you can go forward, and then you can do the same thing backward. So again, if you're just this, probably not going to feel much. But see how I'm kind of shoulder shrugging and doing that. So that's another one. So we can come to here, and you try and cross your arms and dip your chin. There's the high school slouch again, right? And then we come back and behind. So this is a shoulder exercise, but it's also for your breathing too. So when you come to here, if you're stiff, you only get to here. If you're a little more flexible, you get to here. If you're more flexible, you get to here. So I'm squishing, dipping the chin. When I come out, this is where I breathe in. As much as you can. Back. Now I switch. Whichever arm was on top, I switch. And go as far as you can go. So this is like a ball, like I'm squeezing into a ball. And then I'm opening up like a flower. And if you bring your chin up a little bit, you can breathe deeper. So now again, I switch. Whichever arm was on top, I got hands, forearms, elbows. If you can do your upper arm, you're more flexible than I am by far. That's as far as I can go. But each time we do this, you see how my hands are kind of loose here? When I come out, I pull my hands back. And then release. So like this side, I'm kind of relaxed and like floppy, if you will. this side I have a little tension, because the tension on the hand, in the skin, in the muscles, now that extra tension is going to pull on this. And then this stretch pulls on the chest. And then this helps to open up the lungs. And then I arch my back. So now I'm getting my back, my neck, my shoulders, and the spine starts to do this kind of rolling. So anybody got issues with your back? Your back ever tight, stiff? Never? I'm the only one?
So how was your breathing? When were you breathing in?
When I'm open.
Breathing out?
Breathe in, because I'm open. Breathe out when you're compressing. And you don't necessarily need to do exactly how I'm showing you. You know, these aren't right and wrong, like, oh, that's wrong, it's bad. If you're doing them this slow and relaxed, you're really not doing it wrong. You just might not have as much range, or your timing might be a little off or whatever. But it's not like if you're weightlifting and you're lifting something heavy, and like if you do it wrong, you will hurt yourself. You know, you'll strain a joint or strain a muscle, right? With this, you're probably not going to strain. So if you were to breathe out here, that's not going to be bad. And I breathe in here, it's not bad. It's just not the best. You know, if you're going to fill up your lungs, why not do it when you're open? And then use this to squish, you know. So it's, not right or wrong. It's what works for you. So where are we at? We're running out of time here. We're in the last part. So I wanted to get all the way down to my toes, but, we got the back, we got the hips, we got the knees. We only got a couple minutes. So do you have questions? You did?
No, I just want an exercise for the lower back.
So yeah, lower back. Let's do a couple of those real quick here. So the one I wanted to show you would be like here, dip your chin first, and then your shoulders. And if you can, you're trying to round your back as much as you can to go down to whatever your comfortable level is. Try not to have your head up like this when you're rounding your back down. So on the way back up, I just go the reverse. I start with the lower back, bringing it back. My hands come up. And if I can picture each vertebrae, so now I'm going up the spine, up to my shoulders, and then my head levels off. So it's like your fingers, you're trying to go down like this, all the way into a ball, whatever that is. And then back up, you don't start with the fingers, you start with the big knuckle and then go back up. What's your question?
Not a question so much as, but I
Scoliosis, I remember, right?
Scoliosis, my back is like this. It's not like it's going up the spine, my spine's crooked.
Yep.
So it hurts to lean over.
So let me show you a couple other things that you can try. So like I said, there's variety. It's not always just one exercise. It's like, this one doesn't work, so I don't want to do any of them. Well, there's another one that might work good or better. So you have 3 planes of movement for your back, for your body. You have forward, in this plane, back and up. We have sideways. So remember how I was asking you not to do this, like with your head and your spine? Now I'm asking you to do that with your head. So try and bring your ear to your shoulder and then lean sideways. And, if you feel like you're going to fall over, hold on to this if you need to, but just as far as you can go to the side. If you keep your head up here, you're again kind of defeating the purpose. Try to let your head relax so that the whole spine can go sideways.
Okay.
So then the same thing here. Head to the shoulder. Okay, I feel in my neck. Feels kind of good, stretching it. And then I try and dip. And then the same way back up. So what I'm trying not to do is just move from my lower back. I'm not just trying to move my lower back. I'm trying to move the whole, each part of the spine. I'm trying to just relax and let it go. This is a good one, lay in bed. You're laying flat on your back in bed, and you just try and do what I did. Now you don't have the tension of your body holding you up, and you can just still try to get the body to move. Range of motion doesn't have to be with weight, weight on your body. You can do it laying flat. So that's the second direction. So we have vertical going forward. What do we call that? That's sagittal plane. We got coronal is to the side, the corona, like around the sun, it's sideways. And then we have transverse. So transverse would be trying to keep your back, again, not arched, a little bit rounded is fine, and try and turn not just your head, but your arms and shoulders. So my hips are straight, my spine gets that little twist, now we're moving this way. So again, we come back, everything's kind of relaxed, whatever, comfortable, not arched. Whenever you're twisting sideways like this, you don't want to be arched and twisting. It puts too much tension on the lower back. So either relaxed and neutral or a little bit slouched. That's the head. This is the arms. Now I get the spine. That is very similar to the exercise that I showed up on the board where the guy was laying on his back and his leg comes across, and you put your leg like all the way here. I'm not going to lay on the floor, but if I was laying flat on a bed and I tried to bring my leg up like this and then across, that's twisting my lower back. What we just did, we did it from a sitting position, so you don't need to lay down and do it. This way.
So you always have your head in the neutral position.
Well, you could go more so. Like I could go with my belt, like my belt buckle stays forward, but my navel turns, my shoulders turn, and then if I wanted to do my neck can turn. But you don't have to. It's all range of motion, how far you feel comfortable. So if my back isn't comfortable doing it down here, well, I can turn my shoulders. It takes a little more, awareness, and I can turn my head, but my navel is straight ahead. Now my navel's turned, shoulders turn, head turns. So it's all, up for debate, for you, how far you go, how far you feel comfortable. I think the point I'm trying to get across overall, the more you stay active in movement, whatever it is, that's just going to be beneficial for you and more preventative than waiting until I have the pain. Now I got to do stuff to get rid of it. So you try to stay more mobile before it happens. I know some of you are like, I already got the pain, Jim. So then you try to manage it by doing some of the movements. So the walking, if you can't walk that much, just doing this. Now, granted, you're going to have to do it for, about 5 minutes. You work up to it. Just keep doing that. And that would be the equivalent of walking around for, a bit. Maybe not the same because you don't have all the weight on your body, but then you got to do the other leg. So, you could switch off. You could do like 10 on one side and 10 on the other. So that is just really good for keeping the blood flowing and trying to avoid getting edema, water pooling in the bottom of your body with the feet and the calves. Now, if you want to scoot your butt further instead of back here, because that's supporting my leg, okay? If I scoot, now I lift it up, now I'm engaging my thigh muscles, my back, my rear end. So more muscles are engaged. So now you're more muscle tone, more tension on the bones, so that's helping with osteoporosis. And then you want to make your knee stronger, you lock your knee. And then you do, 10 of them. And then you do the same on the other side. You always want to balance it out. If I'm just here with my knee bent, that's good for the ankle and the calf and getting the blood moving. If I hold my leg up, now we get knee exercise, thigh exercise, hamstring exercise, glute exercise, lower back exercise, stomach exercise.
Yeah, that's what I've just had knee surgery, and the PT gal, that's one of the big exercises she gives me is, straightening the leg and doing that.
It's a really good exercise. So, everything I'm showing you, I keep, what's the word? Supersizing it. It's like, this is a really good one. This is a really good one for the acupressure, that spot on your thumb. This is a really good one for your neck. They're all really good because I know I've done them. I teach them, I practice them, I've been doing them for decades. I know they're really good. So if I seem a little enthusiastic and you're like, gym. I know I can't do that. I get it. You know, I know some of you have restrictions and things that just, you know, you're not going to be able to do it. But that's why I'm very, you know, adamant about it. I know they work if you can do them.
On those last ones you were showing us for your knees,
Mhm.
so you don't overdo it, like how many?
So any of these exercises, I would try to do, excuse me, like the first time you're trying them, try and do like 10 of them. You do 10 on one leg, and then do 10 on the other leg, and then let it go, and don't worry about it for, you know, until later in the day. And if you're fine, you know, it didn't feel too stiff or sore or anything, if you want to do it again or the next day. You know, ideally, any of these exercises, if you want to get the benefits from them, you do try to do them every day. It's like, oh, there's so many of them. Well, you folks have some time that you can adjust, right? So I joke sometimes and say, you know, you have a full-time job. Really, it's you know, your health. You might be retired, but you have a full-time awareness that you got to take care of your health. So if you can get on a schedule, you know, write it down or do it with friends, just, you know, you just got to do it. They'll work if you do them. So the exercise ball thing, yeah, the exercise ball thing, you know, they say squeeze it or whatever, that thing works. You got to do it though. You know, the grippers, got a little spring thing, you know, you got to do it. The stretchy bands, they work for some people. You got to do them. You got to do it. You know, the stretching thing, it will help, but you got to do it. If you can't do it because of restrictions, then find a different one that will work. So any other questions? 'Cause I think we're at the end of the road here.
Vertigo. So when the doctor moves and you have to follow the fingers,
Right.
they all say on the right side, I have like an extra little movement there. What does that indicate and why?
Have they given you any indication, the doctors? No. You know, you.
You mean an extra movement, you mean your eye goes further?
Just an extra little twitch because they're checking for vertigo. Because I've always
Yeah,
had a problem.
you know, your nervous system, everything you do is your nervous system, right? Your nervous system is the brain controlling everything. So every movement you make, every reaction that you do, every face you make, you know, it's all your brain and your nervous system. So maybe you got a little extra activity for some reason there. Maybe there's a blockage, maybe you have tension. You know, sometimes tension comes out in twitches. You know, someone's got a nervous tick. A lot of times it's a lot of stress, you know. Flight air traffic controllers, you know, those guys, very stressful. Firefighters, sometimes very stressful. You know, they get this thing going on. They're always, you know, nervous twitch of some sort. So it might be that. It might be your body's way of just releasing tension when you're in that particular weird spot. You know, it's like, there's some saying, you know, it's like, oh, doctor, my arm hurts when I do this. You know, what do I do? Well, stop doing that. You know, hurts to put your arm above your head. Don't do it. If it doesn't hurt you or anything, you know, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're doing it and you're, you know, oh, it kind of hurts, it's not comfortable. You know, if you don't have to do that, then don't do it. It's only when they check it at the doctor, you know, it might not be that.
I've always had vertigo problems. So that's part of it.
You know, my wife has vertigo, so we learned some other things with it. High salt diet. I'm pretty sure you're watching your diet, you know, these days. Everybody start watching your diet, right? A lot of salt in your diet can affect your vertigo because a lot of salt content in your body that affects the water, right? Water in your body, we're like 80% water. You have water in your ear, the inner, what do they call them, semicircular canals. You know about those? The little tubes that are in different planes that affect your stability to know when your head is up, when you're down. They have water in them, they have fluid in them. So if you have less fluid in them, too much salt affects the fluid level. You have less fluid in your ear, that can cause vertigo. So not enough salt causes problems too. So I hope you enjoyed these 3 talks that we did, if you came to all of them or not. Again, I cast a wide net. I try to throw a lot of information out, a lot of things to try, a lot of things to think about. If you walk away with maybe 1 or 2 things that you're like, I can do that, you know, I'll try that, or this might be something that, you know, gives me a little bit of relief, then I think it was successful. You know, I have a pretty wide curriculum of stuff here. So grab anything you want that's on the table here, and maybe I'll see you guys down the road on a different topic. So thanks for coming.